right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and braving a kind of rainy, hopefully not too stormy night. This is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors at the Education Service Center and on the district website. It was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I'm going to pause to ask Superintendent Wimmer to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. With that, we have called this meeting to order. I will recognize a quorum of our board with 6 board members present in the room. And also we have Chris Jenkins joining us remotely. And we congratulate Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins on the recent arrival of their twins. And we understand everyone's doing well. So Chris, congratulations. While also Thank you. I should note also that because Mr. Jenkins is participating remotely, board policy requires that we collect our votes via roll call vote. So I'll be collecting roll call votes tonight. And when I promptly forget to do so, I would ask my fellow board members to chastise me mercilessly and remind me of that. So, all right. So with that, we move to the approval of our agenda. The agenda was published in advance. I would move to approve this agenda. Is there a second? Kelly, thank you very much for the second. We have a motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll take our first roll call vote, and we will start with Mr. Jenkins. Let's see. Chris, if you're there, we're taking a roll call vote on the approval of the agenda, just in case you might be on mute.
Yep, I'm here, Ben, and I say aye.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Aragot? Mr. Swagerfels, yes. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Dr. Temez?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
And Ms. Kruger?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. That motion carries. We have an approved agenda. We move then to our student representative reports. And tonight we have Mr. Noah Minty here for the student report. Good evening, Mr. Minty.
Is this okay? Perfect. I am here to do all 3: student life, athletics, and clubs and co-curriculars. So let's get into it. Starting off with student life and academics. Grant Lauders, a senior at East, was recognized at a signing event on May 21 at Steiner Electric after he completed the Youth Apprenticeship program. Grant was the first Youth Apprenticeship student at Steiner, and after graduation, he will continue in the Adult Apprenticeship program while being employed at Steiner and enrolling in the Electrician program at Moraine Park Technical College. Nearly 30 East and West High School students are now Project Lead the Way graduates because they completed all 4 Project Lead the Way classes. This is the largest group of students to earn this honor in the program's history. The students earned their white coats at a ceremony May 21. When East senior Mackenzie Delaney begins attending college at the University of Central Florida this fall, she will be doing so with a full scholarship worth $125,000 that she earned from the Reserve Officers Training Corps. This impressive accomplishment came after an intense application process. A grant from the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Deployment's Wisconsin Fast Forward program and West Bend High School's funds were used to purchase 2 professional-grade 3D printing platforms to further align the school's engineering and manufacturing programs with industry standards. This is the second time that West Bend High Schools have earned the grant and donation, giving the engineering and manufacturing programs 3 total 3D printers. The printers provide students with more opportunities to train in advanced manufacturing fields and more marketable skills. Athletics. The WIAA presented the West Gymnastics team with its Sportsmanship Award. This is the very first time a West team has ever won the honor in any sport. This award was first announced in April, with the West team being one of only 6 schools in the state to be given the award amongst all 2024 Winter Athletics. The East and West High Schools athletic departments held the Senior Athletic Awards events on May 19th. Several awards were given in recognition of the North Shore Conference Academic Awards and Major Athletic Awards to students who completed at least 3 years of one or more sports. The Prudence Pitt Coach of the Year 2024 winner was James Danaher, head coach of the West Boys soccer team. Danaher's 2023 team accomplished the best record in school history. Finally, clubs and co-curriculars. During a board meeting on May 20th, David Wyatt was recognized for being named the National Speech and Debate Association's Southern Wisconsin District Assistant Coach of the Year. In addition, Linda Granick was also recognized for being awarded the NSDA Southern Wisconsin District Volunteer of the Year Award. Several East and West high school students qualified for national competitions in their respective co-curricular organizations. The following organizations have had their students compete in national competitions around the country this summer: Skills USA, Future Business Leaders of America, Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, and Speech and Debate. West students Aiden Schmitz and Kikoken Bush took first and second in the recent Bots IQ competition, where they built, designed, and then destroyed robots. That's all I have for you. Have a wonderful week.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your report. All right, we move next to public participation. And tonight I have, I believe it's four participant comment cards. So I anticipate 4 speakers, just scanning to make sure that I haven't missed any. There we go. So what I will do next is read the Board Policy 187 instructions. We've come to the public participation portion of our agenda. Board Policy 187 prescribes the nature and procedures for this segment. I summarize the policy at this time, but copies of this policy are available in the back of the room, and I urge you to familiarize yourself with the policy in its entirety. Residents of the district, parents of children in district schools, and employees of the district may participate. Participants desiring to address the board should obtain and complete a participant comment card near the entry and turn it over to the president prior to the meeting or when allowed by the president. Participants may comment concerning an agenda item or a non-agenda item. Each participant will be called to the podium and will be given 3 minutes to speak. The participant must state his or her name and relation to the district. This information will appear in the minutes of the meeting. The board will not engage in debate concerning the remarks or take immediate action. The board may refer the matter to the superintendent, a committee, or take the remarks into consideration in future action. Board Policy 872 provides a formal process for citizen complaints, and Board Policy 520 provides a formal process for employee complaints. The board recommends use of these procedures as they guarantee a fair and timely response. I'll invite participants forward to speak. There is a visible timer behind me to help you manage your time. And with the number of participants, I will also alert speakers to who is on deck. And lastly, to help ensure that all participants are heard and that the meeting runs efficiently, we'd ask everyone to please abstain from conversation, comment, or applause during or after public participation comments. So with that, I'd like to invite our first speaker tonight, and that's Mr. Jerry Mickelson. And on deck is Carrie Bone. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I've mispronounced anyone's name. Mr. Mickelson, you and I talked in advance, so I had the unfair advantage to make sure that I was pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, thank you.
Your comment card indicates that you are a resident of the district. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. So if you just state your name for the record, and then the next 3 minutes are yours.
All right, my name is Jerry Mickelson. A little bit about myself. I am a 1977 West Bend West graduate. My wife is a 1982 West Bend East graduate. My son is a 2018 West Bend East graduate. I still feel it's part of my obligation to remind them from time to time, as a West graduate, that the sun surely does shine in the East, but it goes to rest in the West. So I have to remind everyone a little bit of where I come from, all right? I'm here, I'd like to speak a little bit about sexual content. But before I get there, I have a few numbers I'd like to run through and just a couple of things to think out loud. And the first thing to think out loud a little bit and maybe ask, because there won't be an answer here tonight, is out of all the educators in the West Bend School District, how many are certified, educated, certified, and qualified to speak and counsel addiction or NSSI? NSSI is non-suicidal self-injury. Just wondering how many are actually certified to actually handle and counsel in those matters, addiction and NSSI. The second thing is, the question I have is, where to draw the line when it comes to sexual content? I'm not here to draw a line, I'm just here to ask a few questions, throw out a few numbers, and maybe just encourage us all a little bit, all right? Here's some numbers. And there's some political hot buttons here because sexual content is a political hot button, but there's 4 others that I'm going to just briefly look at. Guns, drugs, alcohol, self-injury. Okay, with guns, let's just look at guns for a moment in numbers. About 40,000 people probably will die this year because of the result of gun violence. Out of that 40,000, more than 50%, they say closer to 60%, will die by suicide. Drugs, 108,000 drug overdose deaths is still on the rise in 2024. Alcohol, more than 178,000 will die because of excessive alcohol use. In fact, some of the statistics are more than 500 U.S. deaths every day as of March 20th, 2024. Self-injury. The best guess is about 70% of adolescents, when they separate the adolescents, about 17% of adolescents participate or have self-injured. Sexual content now, which I'd like to speak about. Oh, bummer, I'm really low, okay. 433 cases of sexual assault, every 68 seconds an American is sexually assaulted, and close to 24 million are classified as sex addicted. When it comes to drawing a line on guns, drugs, alcohol, and self-injury, it seems like we have no question on where to draw the line. Why would we have a problem with drawing a line when it comes to sexual content when that is the highest degree in probability for addiction and for horrific and violent behavior? And I guess the next board meeting I can come and add to that, but
Thank
that
you.
would be my question.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. We move to our next speaker then, Carrie Bone, which we invite forward, and then Ms. Carol Hager is on deck. First of all, did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did,
Oh,
yep.
fantastic. And Ms.
Yep.
Bone, it indicates on your participant comment card that you're a resident of the district. Is that
I am,
correct? Great.
yes.
Then for the record, if you'd just state your name, and then the next 3 minutes are yours.
Okay, my name is Carrie Bone, and I'm here to speak today about the sexual content in our book club curriculum books. Yikes. For people who think sexual content belongs in any school curriculum at any grade level, all I can wonder is how far society has come. That we could be desensitized enough to divert attention in our schools from learning about real academics to grooming our students for sex. This is who we have to answer to in the end, just so you all know. So what educational value can possibly come from offering books with sexual content as part of the curriculum? The answer should not be about parental choice for children to read porn in school any more than we would give parental choice for children to do illegal drugs on school grounds and with tax dollars. If it's wrong, it's wrong. The school should be protecting students when students are in its care. Parents shouldn't have to question or worry about whether their children will be safe in school. Please give this discussion your due diligence and oppose sexual content in book club curriculum for all grade levels. Thank you.
Thank you. We invite our third speaker forward tonight, Ms. Carol Hager, and then our final speaker tonight will be Ms. Jody Geenan. And Ms. Hager, your participant comment card indicates that you're a resident of the district. Is that correct?
Yes, that
Great.
is.
Excellent. If, just for the record, if you state your name, and then the next 3 minutes are yours.
Okay. I'm Carol Hager, a resident of West Bend. Before spring break last year, 2023, community members began to learn of a book being used in Badger Middle School called the 57 Bus. Many parents and residents began to speak at board meetings and write letters to the editor about their concerns. Eventually, Jody Geenan and I wrote reconsideration challenges, asking that the 57 Bus and the Kite Runner both be removed from the book club lists at Badger, as well as the high school, where the 57 Bus and the Kite Runner were both included in junior English book club curriculum. As a result of our book club challenges, you would think Kristallnacht had occurred in West Bend. The vitriol was shocking. We were book banners. Yet the Kite Runner was rated as the 11th most challenged, or banned, as the opponents say, book. One of the most challenged books, 11th most challenged book in school and public libraries across the U.S. Furthermore, Menominee Falls School District School Board recently removed 33 books from their school libraries, including The Kite Runner. By the way, some of those 33 books on Menominee Falls list can also be found residing in our West Bend High School library. Yet the school board in Menominee Falls saw fit to remove the same books. To continue this process, standards were set up by the curriculum committee last summer, a good thing. Standards that stated how much profanity and sexual and violent content could be included in titles chosen for the book club lists. Despite these standards, many of the book club titles had a large variety of profane and obscene words and violent scenes, even murders and suicides, yet all these books were approved by the curriculum committee in most cases. Some, like The Kite Runner, had violent sexual scenes. I'm still confused why a man-on-boy rape scene is considered appropriate at any grade level, but The Kite Runner continues to be read by juniors at our high schools, many of these juniors who aren't licensed to drive or allowed into R-rated movies. Now the school board is once again considering sexual content in books. For a year, we've been considering sexual content. Should that man-on-boy rape scene be considered as violence or graphic sexual content? Unbelievably, some sex scenes in book club books were allowed by the curriculum committee because they were deemed descriptive and not graphic. We've been told that a character who identifies as one of dozens of genders is not enough to remove a book from the list. Shouldn't that be considered sexual content? I believe gender identity, as well as graphic definitions of sexual terms, as is listed in the 57 bus, should be enough to remove that book and others from our reading lists. When sexual profanity, excuse my language, such as suck, fuck, dork, screw, cunt, prick, cum, hard, MILF, those are in book club books when it's acknowledged and accepted by the school district. Those words should also be considered sexual content of a book. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We invite our final speaker tonight, Ms. Jody Geenan. And Ms. Geenan, you indicated on your card that you are a resident of the district. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. If you'd state your name then for the record, and the next 3 minutes are yours.
Jody Geenan. Hello, I'm here to speak about today's discussion item, sexual content in our book club. Oops, lost my waist. And about the article in the Washington County Insider over the weekend entitled West Bend East Baseball Coach Under Investigation Following Inappropriate Behavior at Carl Cuss Field. According to the article, a head baseball coach who was told his game would have to be relocated because metal cleats were not allowed on the turf field responded with profanity, including numerous F-bombs and what has been called inexcusable and inappropriate behavior. More from the article. While the Code of Ethics policy for the school district is in place, and Superintendent Wimmer said they deem the language not acceptable behavior, she did confirm that profane words are included in the West Bend School District's book club curriculum. Some students may have access to book club books with parent consent that has profanity in it, she said. Question then, when a coach uses the profanity, you're in favor of it or you're not? Wimmer said, no, we're not in favor of that. Perusing some of the language found under the 8th grade reading material and even the high school English classes, I am still outraged at the list of profanities that are in the curriculum. In one 8th grade book, there are 12 uses of the F-bomb and too many more words that I can't myself say publicly. In conjunction with both the profanities in the books and the coach's F-bombs, I am still shocked by the audacity of one middle school teacher who, during a public book challenge last year, asked the book challenger what was wrong with using the F word. How can we expect excellence from our students when the school district staff does not follow or agree with the Code of Ethics policy and student handbook? How can we expect excellence from our students when our school district appears to believe that profanities are acceptable enough to offer them in the curriculum and to use them around the students and public? Furthermore, after reviewing the school board agenda for today, I am shaking my head at the item for discussion, sexual content. Judging by how the profanities have gone for curriculum, I'm not too hopeful about what the school board and administration plans to do with continuing to allow sexual content in the curriculum. Nevertheless, I am urging this board to vote against offering curriculum with any sexual content for any grade. If students want to read books with sexual content, we're not saying they can't do that. We're not saying the parents can't choose to approve that, but they can do it in their spare time and not with our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final participant tonight. We thank our participants for their comments. We'll move then to our next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. On our consent agenda, we have minutes of the May 20, 2024 regular board meeting and executive session, 4 contracts, 1 resignation, 1 retirement, certain out-of-state trips, an emergency purchase expenditure related to rescue assistance, revisions to an employee handbook, and disbursements posted to May 31, 2024. So a number of items on our consent agenda. Are there any questions on any of the items on our consent agenda? Hearing none, I would move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. All right, I will take a roll call vote. Ms. Aragot?
Yes.
Mr. Swigert votes yes. Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Kruger?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
And Dr. Temez? Yes. Great, thank you. That motion carries, and the consent agenda is approved. Just catch up here with my paperwork. All right. Next, we move to reports, and we have our superintendent's report. Superintendent Wimmer.
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you to all the community members, parents, guardians, and staff who completed the West Bend School District Survey and Facilities. As a reminder, the Donovan Group is preparing those results and will present them to the board and our public at the June 17th meeting. So at that meeting, the board will be hearing and processing the results of the survey only. The board will determine what next steps should be taken at a future work session on that same topic. So again, thank you everyone for their responses. This week is the final week of school for students, so just 3 days of school left in this school year. There's lots of elementary field days, other special events. You heard a lot of recognitions from NOAA. Students at the high school are facing final exams. They've got an alternate schedule this week. We do have an 8th grade promotion ceremony this Wednesday evening, and then our graduations are on Sunday, June 9th. East High School is at 1 p.m. and West High School is at 4:30 p.m. So we look forward to that. Spring athletics just competed this week at the WIA State Championship. It was a even rainier weekend for them in lacrosse. So despite those challenges, commend and share these results with you. Riley Failing took 4th in the state for the hurdles. Jenna Pierre, Riley Failing, Annabelle Gonring, Josie Mesa took 9th in the 4x400 relay. Mel Prinsel took 12th in the 100 hurdles. Ava Banks took 15th in the triple jump, and Cameron McAndrews 20th in both high jump and long jump. So congratulations to those students competing on behalf of West Bend at the state level. You heard about the grant from NOAA, but I just wanted to thank our teachers, Jacob Gitter and Ryan Johnson, for their dedication in securing those resources, as well as those dollars made available by the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, and certainly our community partner, J.W. Speaker Corporation. It was their invaluable support in bringing these advanced manufacturing tools to our high schools, so we look forward to seeing those in action. So again, thank you to those individuals, as well as J.W. Speaker for making that happen. Also, thank you to Fleet Farm. Fleet Farm donated 70 Schwinn bike helmets to Decorah Elementary for its end of the year kind of roundup and bash. So thank you again to Fleet Farm for their partnership with our schools. And you heard about one student's accomplishment related to military and service. We had 9 East and West High School graduating seniors enlisting in the U.S. Armed Forces. So on May 29th, the high schools held a class of 2024 military signing event for recruits, their families, and friends. Just to honor those who are enlisting, they include in the Air Force, Xander Deppies; in the Army, Spencer Daniels, Austin Hunn; in the Marines, Ethan Boyoung, Aiden Bush, Nicholas Hayden, Gavin Jeske, Caden Zemer; and in the Navy, August Garbish. So thank you to those students for their service to our country. It's appreciated. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Wimmer? All right, we appreciate your report. Next is we move to our discussion items. And the first discussion is recommendation for book club selection and notification regarding sexual content. Superintendent Wimber has relocated to the podium.
I'm switching spots. I am pinch hitting tonight for Dr. Trueblood. So bringing forward on behalf of the curriculum committee, this is certainly a topic that's been ongoing with our board. Recall that we had put some pieces in place in September and kind of moved through that process. If I had $1 for every time we said iterative, we knew that would kind of unfold, and we would work our way through that and determine kind of what next steps, what recommendations recommendations do we have for revision? So that set a course of surveying families, surveying staff, working through the committee. The committee met last on April 19th, and recall we unpack this in kind of 3 parts because it's a very big topic. So the first one we talked about was graphic violence. The one we're talking about tonight is the sexual content. And then last, which we anticipate to come in July, is the profanity piece. So there's kind of 3 pieces of that. So what you see in your documents, there were some recommendations that the committee worked through and discussed, and it just talks about kind of that consideration. One of the largest pieces, if you follow in the document, if you're watching from public, is around revising the definition. You can see in that very first box there, the current definition was very broad, left a lot to interpret, which that's what was probably most difficult. I would encourage Kelly, Melanie, June, members of the committee, as we've worked through that process and looked at that, we talked about getting more description to that definition to aid in the work in that piece. Then the next was to kind of refine the review process. And then you'll see a shift, not just in really expanding the definition, but also a recommendation for considering different thresholds based on chronological developmental age of students. Right now, it is none in everything, and that met with a lot of discussion and I think a need for clarity. So you'll see that clarity come in reframing the definition. What do we really mean by that? But also then, what should that look like for different grade levels and different exposure? So you'll see that consideration. And then certainly we've already talked about communication, notification. Those pieces continue to be making sure our families and are engaged, that they have a hand in that, and that we're communicating. We cleaned up a lot of that process. And then finally in that packet, you saw 2 examples of texts that, using our current filter, were removed, not brought forward, and then what they would be considered on that piece. So for tonight's purpose, you're simply having a larger discussion. The committee felt it was ready to come forward for full discussion for the board. Once we get through discussion, we may bring this back as, just as we did with the graphic violence, to get an affirmation from the board, so that we can put all these pieces together. So certainly there's going to be a wide variety of opinions expressed. So Melanie, I don't know if committee chair, you want to add anything to kind of kick off the discussion for the board. We'll be taking notes then.
Sure. So yes, with committee, I do have a lot I want to say on this topic, but I will say that revising the definition, the whole review process that is put together, I am in support of that. However, I'm struggling with the allowances for the different grade bands. So I'm just going to kick it off with everything that I wrote down to say. So
Go for it.
Okay, so I'll say on paper, the threshold levels look like they make sense when following the graphic violence considerations. However, when actually seeing examples in writing, I can't. Like, I'm just sickened by them. Like I said, I do like the new definitions and review process, but I feel like I would like it to still be none across the board, personally. I can't see a situation where sexual content in books for minors can be positive. Kids are surrounded by sexual content on a daily basis through the internet, social media, entertainment, and I just don't want school to be another avenue where they're bombarded with that information. Early sexualization leads to increased student sexual activity, increased number of sex partners, and increased sexual experimentation. It also leads to mental health issues such as eating disorders, low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts. Vulnerable children and teen minds are not equipped to bear the weight of adult sexuality. Early and inappropriate sexualization affects adult lives, relationships, thoughts, beliefs, and actions, leading into many addictions and broken relationships. And normalizing underage sex or promiscuous sexual behavior teaches young men to objectify women. They don't value them for who they are, but rather what they can do for them. And it also teaches young girls that they have to engage in sexual behavior for people to like them and to be accepted. I cannot personally or morally support allowing any sexual content in the district in any grade level.
Thanks. I just want to, just so I have that, because again, it's going to be really important for us to kind of take notes, get a sense as we need to refine, bring things back. So just hearing support for the expanded definition, but hearing threshold still solidly at no for you all across the board.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would second that. I would be threshold at no across the board. Children are not sexual. We don't need sexual content in school to have a quality education at any point. Only people that want sexual content in school are perverts. So, I mean, the definition is pretty easy to describe. Definition at statute 948.11, exposing child to harmful material or harmful description of narration. Harmful description of narration accounts means an explicit or detailed description of narrative accounts of sexual excitement, sexual explicit conduct, abuse, physical torture, or brutality that is taken as a whole is harmful to children. It goes on describing and giving you the definitions that you're looking for, which under criminal penalties is a felony. So this is, I mean, I know you've talked before about, oh, libraries have different things. This is not a library. These are,
Correct.
this is book club stuff. So anybody that gives children this garbage, I will not hesitate to file a report.
So you're looking, let me get this. So you're in support of that expanded. You'd like us to look a little bit further at the state statute, some of that language to further expand or add detail?
I think it's laid
To
out for you
that?
pretty easy. It
Okay.
says no.
And then thresholds at none for you. Anyone else like to contribute to the dialogue?
So with others, I guess, on the curriculum committee, I mean, I appreciate the fact, and you're right, $1 every time we say iterative, but that's the idea. Oop, looks like we're getting a little feedback. Let's see, is that better? Better? No? I think we're good. All right, are we good with the feedback? I think I may have fixed it. Tim, I think I may have fixed it. Absolutely. That's all right. Iterative, so the definition, because I think that was, if I remember, and certainly other members of the curriculum committee can speak up too, and thank you, Melanie, too, that the definition was a little bit tougher. So I appreciate the fact that there's more words and certainty around it. I don't have a problem considering, to explore it further. And the review process, I think, is good too, because again, we want to have consistency here, whatever the threshold is. I do think it's important for us to understand also, if this is bringing forward, we have to think that there's at least some quantum of educational value in this. And so, yeah, and so that's something I think we need to continue to explore. We need to continue to understand as well. I note, and maybe there's more we can talk about with regard to the examples that were had, because I think sometimes it's tough to see, except if we have examples in front of us around, well, because of this, we might consider, because of some language that one person or 9 out of 10 could consider to be very, very innocent or general, and one person might say, well, I'm not sure, and it throws the whole book away. I guess that's the kind of stuff we need to understand if we have enough definition and certainty to be able to arm ourselves for a consistent process.
What we could do, I know, so I'm hearing you, let me make sure I have this, kind of support for expanding the definition and doing that, questioning the educational value, and still need to make a case if there's any that lies within where that intersection is, and then expanding the examples. I know they didn't want to inundate with examples, or there might be examples of text that commingled all 3 issues. They were trying to find some that simply just had that. What we could do is find some examples of just those passages that were a little less clear, so that we can round out that list so you can see, and that you can more clearly draw a line of, yep, this falls into people are really extrapolating and reaching, or this is a little bit more. So what we could do, I just want to be clear then, is we wouldn't be bringing those books forward for consideration. We're just expanding the examples in that area, because again, it's not clear that there's any educational value in that piece. Okay.
Just examples.
Yep, just
Yeah,
so
and
I
I think
had
the
that.
examples for the educational value, but also the idea that something that might, again, if we have 9 individuals who would say, this is perfectly fine, one would say, I'm not sure, but it throws out, if you will, as a result, the totality of the book. I think that's something we need to consider as well.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I'll just read another criminal penalty piece on here. It says, whoever with knowledge of character and content of the material possesses harmful material with the intent to sell, rent, exhibit, play, distribute, or loan the material to a child is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor, if any of the following applies. And it basically says anybody under 18. So there are criminal penalties to anybody that wants to give this out. So like I said, the definition is pretty clear on what the state statute says we can do. And I think this conversation is pretty much done.
Well, it'd be interesting to take some of the examples and apply it against the language that Mr. Donaldson is talking about. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's relevant.
Yeah, and I think there was, like I said, there was an intersection of several where they were falling into both the profanity, the graphic violence, all those pieces. But if we just pulled and isolated those pieces so that you could look at those again, so that you're secure in no line where we could do that work. I would further suggest, and I think my policy friends would be okay with this. Let me know if my curriculum committee friends are okay with this. We do have an upcoming policy meeting. I'm hearing the expansion of the definition. There's no problem or issue with expanding and providing clarity needed on that definition. I think that's something we could add to our policy agenda and kind of work through some language and look at those pieces. Again, we wouldn't be setting a threshold or entertaining that piece, but maybe that team could help with some of the definition part for you. So if the curriculum committee is open to that, we could help with kind of the definition piece.
Objections? Not hearing any objections to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we would have any objection to any more input on the definition.
Great.
Other thoughts or comments? This is a discussion item, so we're not taking action tonight, but
Correct. And
That's
it
the
sounds
purpose of the
like
discussion.
Yep. So just knowing that, there was a little bit less discussion, a little bit more clarity around graphic violence. That was a little bit easier. We've got some work to do before we bring this back for an action item. I'll do a little bit of the work with the policy committee on getting that definition in a spot, but then you're asking us as a board to bring back some more examples and really talk more about the education value of that so that you can know and understand around hearing a zero threshold, that kind of piece. Where would that ever come into play to come out of a zero threshold? Right.
very good.
And then certainly the board in the interim can reach out to me and let me know if you don't have to come up with all your thoughts now. If you've got a question or an idea or something, just communicate in the interim. And again, then I'll work with our policy committee to put that on that agenda. We meet next week, so we could do a little bit of work too in the interim.
I think Chris Jenkins had
Oh,
something.
Chris?
Oh,
to
Chris?
speak back on.
Are you with us?
Looks like you're muted, Chris.
Hey there, I'm sorry, what was the question?
There you are.
Is the microphone on? Chris, did you have anything you wish to add?
Nope, I've been listening and I agree with the next steps.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Any other items? Otherwise, we'll move to the next agenda item. Thank you, Superintendent Wimmer. Seeing none, we will move now to our action items. Our first action item is other post-employment benefit program, and I believe Mr. Lenny Hansen is going to walk us through that item. Good evening.
Good evening. Assistant Superintendent Andy Sarno is here as well.
Mr. Sarno?
We just have a brief introduction around this topic. We've been communicating with staff for several months about the work towards developing a long-term sustainable program for other post-employment benefits. The work's progressed well, and we've received a lot of good input from staff. The action today is designed to honor the current commitment and benefits to staff, while then setting the table for work to continue with our benefits advisory group as we look ahead to what a sustainable long-term program is moving forward.
Board members, any questions on this item? Mr. Hansen, you said that this plan has generally been discussed at the committee level. This topic, I should say.
The topic's been discussed for, I think we've had 4 meetings so far. And then we continue to update all staff through the district newsletter after each time that that group meets about what's discussed. So everything is shared with all staff and not just those on the group.
Thank you. Board members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd move to approve the attached other post-employment benefit program and designation schedule as presented and for it to take effect immediately. Is there a second?
Second.
Melanie, thank you. We have a motion and second again to approve the attached other post-employment benefit program and designation schedule as presented and have it take effect immediately. Final discussion. Hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Ms. Kruger? Yes. Dr. Temez? Yes. Ms. Lang? Yes. And Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Ergot?
Yes.
And Mr. Swigert votes yes. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We move then to our next action item, which is the co-curricular compensation model. And I believe, Mr. Hanson, you're going to walk us through that item as well.
Yep, brief introduction. In the fall, the board approved a co-curricular advisor compensation model, which was really the general framework that a model would operate under. There's never been a model before in the district. And then this kind of follows the pattern that the athletic coach model follows as well. Once the board approved that framework, we then went to work analyzing the exact time commitment required of each co-curricular so that we could determine the exact dollar amounts that would be assigned as salary for being an advisor for each of those programs. So we're happy to finally bring that to its completion today. And that is what you see before you. You see both the model document as well as the category list, which lists those dollar amounts. The model document's being brought forward again because a few minor tweaks took place as the analysis of all of the various programs occurred. And so we're reapproving that model alongside those dollar amounts.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have one if I can.
Of course, Mr. Jenkins.
So I'm looking at page 2 of your co-curricular category list, and I note the asterisks where some of the co-advisor scenarios, the stipends are split. Can you go into a little bit more detail why that is? I mean, is it when they're, are they both present and then have to split that hourly amount? Or do they each get an hourly amount and the workload is just split for different hours that are being worked?
It's a good question. So by standard, we don't have any co-head advisor arrangements. However, over the years, there have been certain situations where a couple of employees have said, hey, we'd be happy to serve as the head advisor, but we kind of don't want to do that lift on our own. What if we split the salary of what the head advisor is? So we would continue to allow that for anybody who wants to continue being a co-head advisor. Otherwise, typically, it's kind of like the head coach. There's usually only one head coach, kind of the same mentality. What that is drawing attention to is that if there are co-head advisors, they would continue to share the amount that's delineated in the schedule that you're looking at.
So I'm not sure if you answered my question. I guess to give an example, let's say K-Kids meets and the two advisors are there for a K-Kids meeting for 2 hours and they're getting paid $10 an hour, let's say. That's $20. So you're saying that the $20 then gets split between the two people?
We have, the majority of our co-curriculars are a flat stipend. There are some where they don't have as many contact hours and therefore we just pay an hourly rate. In that case, they would each receive the normal rate. But the larger ones where you're going to see like a stipend amount, we would split that stipend. So, but no, if they're just doing hourly work, we just pay the hourly rate as it normally appears. And then we determine whether we allow co-advisors, as well as we determine how many assistants are needed each year, and that's generally based upon participation.
Other questions for Mr. Hanson? Or Mr. Jenkins, did you have any follow-up?
Yeah, I guess, I'm sorry, Lenny, I don't mean to be hard on you, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So category E in your document here, it says hourly club supervision rates. So those are hourly rates that the supervisors would be getting. So in the scenario that I laid out, if the fee for that, let's say, is $10 an hour, are each of those advisors, if they're both there at the same time, are they each getting paid $10 per hour?
Yes. And I apologize. I see the reason for the confusion because that asterisk is used in a couple of places. But any of them that are hourly, we pay that flat hourly rate regardless. We do not split the hourly rate. We only split stipends. So I understand where that confusion comes from.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions?
We'll be sure to make sure that that's clear for anybody. This is new territory in the district. In the past, co-curricular amounts have kind of just been what they've always been. And in fact, this year, this board was the first to award an increase to those who returned based on longevity. So we've been in an evolution in improving that because we had a lot of stagnant amounts that people were paid for co-curriculars, and we're looking to improve upon that and not have stagnant amounts for that, and really recognize both the knowledge and skills that go into this, as well as the time commitment, as well as people who return and continue to do this for our students year after year.
I'm appreciative of the work. Obviously, a lot of work went into this. And we've gotten a number of questions tonight, but just as a reminder to our public, we actually approved the model, right? Like you were saying, back in the fall of 2023, I believe it was. And so tonight is really a matter of administration has inserted dollar amounts. And so I think the fact that you're not getting a million questions is because we've seen a lot of this. It's just down to the numbers. So appreciate all of the work putting forward.
But they're good questions. This is, like I said, new territory, and it's good to ask now.
Mm-hmm. Any other input? All right, hearing none, I'll move this for consideration. I make a motion to approve the co-curricular compensation model and co-curricular category list as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and second to approve the co-curricular compensation model and co-curricular category list as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Dr. Temez? Mr. Swiger votes yes. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Ergot?
Yes.
And let's see, Ms. Kruger?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate it. We move to the next item, which is the supplemental work pay rates.
Yep, this is one that the board approves annually. These are the rates of pay used for additional work that employees may do. So, for example, if they're writing curriculum, those sorts of things. So these are brought each year for approval. I do notice the motion did not show up there, so I can give you some coaching on the exact motion there. But again, not an unusual topic for us to see once a year. So being able to make those updates and then make them effective immediately.
Great.
So when we get to motion, I can.
No problem. Any questions, first of all, for Mr. Hanson on the supplemental work pay rates? Hearing none. Just as a sample motion, would it read something like approve the supplemental work pay rates as presented?
Effective immediately.
Effective immediately. All right, thank you. All right, any other discussion? Otherwise, I will call this motion, or I will make the motion to approve the supplemental work pay rates as presented, effective immediately. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. We have a motion and second to approve the supplemental work pay rates as presented, effective immediately. Any final discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Ms. Ergot? Yes. Mr. Swiger votes yes. Dr. Temez? Yes. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Ms. Kruger? Yes. And Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion also carries unanimously. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hanson, for presenting those topics. Superintendent Wimmer, our next agenda item is the school board meeting calendar for 2024 and 2025. And I see in the notes a number of potential calendars in the work that's gone into this. We appreciate it and look forward to your presentation of this topic.
So this has been under discussion. We're just working with individual board members to avoid conflicts for maximum participation. So that resulted in a mixed calendar, if you will, vacillating between the first and third or the second and fourth Mondays throughout the year, which is not new to our district. We've always kind of built a calendar that works for everyone. We're just making sure that we're in attention to posting those dates and looking for those. The remaining conflict in this mixed calendar, should you adopt that, would be in May. Recall that we do a kind of a committee of the whole and board meeting structure. Therefore, we have 2 meetings per month. May, we would need an additional meeting as Memorial Day is on Monday, 5/26, which would have been a meeting day. We recommend just shifting that to the Tuesday if the board would like to consider that to resolve that conflict. Other than that, we're open for discussion. We'd like to get our meetings scheduled for the year ahead.
Board members, any discussion? Melanie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that I do not have any conflicts with any of the calendars. And so I think whoever has the most conflicts, I guess just whatever works for everybody works for me. So.
And I think I've disclosed in the past that unfortunately I'm not going to be, I'll be out of the country actually on September 23rd, but the annual meeting will proceed just fine with someone else chairing. Other than that, I'm okay with any of these. Others, a preference for one or the other?
I can be open.
I'll jump in quick.
Sorry, can you say that, can you repeat that, Chris, one more time?
Yep, I was just going to say, thank you to Jen for working with all of our schedules. It looks like the recommended calendar, the mixed approach should work for everybody, including myself. So I guess I can make a motion to approve that calendar.
And just for clarification purpose, the mixed calendar, got it, thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve the mixed calendar. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, June. We have a motion and second to approve the school board calendar utilizing the mixed approach. Any questions, comments, additional discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Swigert votes yes. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Ms. Kruger?
Yes.
Dr. Temez? Yes. Ms. Aragot?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Excellent. That motion carries. We have a calendar. All right. All right, our next item is the preliminary budget for 2024, 2025, and is that correct?
Yep, there were no additional information. Certainly, Mr. Sarno is here to answer any questions if you had any, but he presented. Recall that the budget process is ongoing. It goes on for quite a bit, but this gives the kind of general idea of that and a framework so that we can begin purchasing in the new budgetary year, which begins July 1.
And this budget is consistent with the budget that was presented, like you said, at the prior meeting, correct?
Correct, and certainly Mr. Sarno's here if you have any questions.
Okay. Board members, any questions regarding the preliminary budget? John?
We just took an action item on a budgetary item. I don't know if that was,
Yes, it's in there.
okay.
Thank you for that. We should have stated that the action around the compensation pieces, all have been accounted for. Some of those pieces were effective immediately and had some retroactive, as well as implications for the future. Great question. Those were accounted for.
Great, thank you. Other questions?
Could I just ask Mr. Sarno to define what our fund balance policy is again?
Sure, Mr. Sarno's just coming to the podium. And the question is, what is our fund balance policy?
Correct. Fund balance policy as it exists is an unassigned, which is, there's different classifications, unassigned fund balance of 14 to 18% of our operational budget. So at this point in time, we're just above the 14%. This maintains that. We're showing a balanced budget, so we're within those parameters.
Mr. Jenkins, any follow-up, Mr. Jenkins?
Nope, that answered both my previous question and the question I was going to ask, so thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Other questions? Hearing none, I'll advance this for consideration by making a motion to approve the 2024-2025 preliminary budget as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. We have a motion and second to approve the 2024-2025 preliminary budget as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Dr. Temez? Mr. Swigert votes yes. Ms. Aragot?
Yes.
And Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Very good. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I believe that concludes our action items. We move then to future agenda items, and we start with our board meeting calendar. So we have 3 meetings coming up in the next few weeks, all scheduled to take place here at the Education Service Center. On June 11th, Policy Committee meeting, 4 p.m. June 17, our regular board meeting at 5:30 p.m., and June 18, Curriculum Committee meeting at 4:30 p.m. Any, Superintendent Wimmer, anything else to add to that calendar at this
Nope,
point?
just working with board availability regarding that work session for facilities. So I'll get that, and we'll get that posted and announced as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. And just as a reminder, we ask our public to double-check the official postings to make sure that none of these dates or times may have changed. All right, we move then to items for follow-up and communication. Anything else we had for follow-up and communication tonight? All right, hearing none, we've reached the end of our planned agenda. There is a matter that's appropriate to discuss in executive session. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely compensation. Would there be a second? Thank you, Dr. Temez. We have a motion and second to adjourn into executive session. Any final discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Swigert votes yes. Dr. Temez? Yes. Ms. Kruger? Yes. Ms. Aragot?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Donaldson? Yes. And Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Very good. That motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned into executive session. We thank everyone for attending and for visiting our meeting tonight. Have a good evening.